Right, welcome back, and moving on to our next topic, which is the US-Africa summit. And the summit just concluded yesterday with the US president announcing billions of dollars in support and investments for Africa, and saying that the United States is all in on Africa's future, according to the US President's statements during the summit. The President Sisi was attending this summit, where he laid Egypt's vision towards the prosperous Africa here, and held a number of meetings there. To highlight this summit and the importance of this summit, we have with us over the phone Dr. Mostafa Tammam, economic analyst. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Right. So we've just seen the US-Africa summit concluding yesterday with many of the American pledges. How do you view this summit at the backdrop of several developments occurring worldwide?
Certainly, this summit reflects the probably efforts made by the state and the president of Egypt, the President Sisi, in giving an importance to the African continent. Certainly, this will have a positive impact on not only on the United States, but only on Africa and all the African countries. And certainly, on the other side, it will strengthen the relations between Egypt and the United States and the Western countries. Certainly, the initiative will be very important because it will encourage investment in both countries, in the African countries. It will encourage the transfer of technology from the West to the African countries. Also, it will encourage, it will act as an elevation for the human resources, because probably there are not, in the African countries, they lack probably the professional human resources. So through training and through development and through upgrading the human resources, certainly this will encourage a lot of companies, American or Western companies, in order to invest in the African continent.
The most important files that were discussed, or the leaders attending sessions, were about the importance of security and stability of Africa, the good governance, and the sustainable development in Africa, which has seen some of the files raised respectively by President Sisi. That comes at the forefront priorities for the African continent. When we
the first file, which was very important, is the combat of terrorism, and certainly we had confirmation and approval about the issues and the efforts made by the state here to combat terrorism, not only in Egypt but in all other countries. The second thing was certainly the issue of the Nahda barrage, you see, which affects certainly a lot of countries, and we got the support of the United States. The third issue was certainly the importance of solving the Palestinian problem in order to achieve peace in the Middle East and stability. So probably these were the most important subjects which were discussed in this summit.
Actually, there were some prior files for all Africa. For an instance, there was the food resilience, the water importance, or the water resources importance, plus, of course, challenges that are occurring and facing the African continent at large, where some of the projects, particularly of what concerns infrastructure and technology, were subject to some of these sessions. When we speak about what the African continent is in need of the United States at this upcoming stage, because we're speaking here about a continent that is divided into several countries with several needs. Please.
Yes, sure. Certainly, this is a very important point that you have raised. Certainly, what the United States can help in is certainly upgrading the infrastructure of the African countries. Number two is certainly upgrading also the human resources and by providing training and transferring technology to these countries. Third one would be the streamlining of the procedures and the laws probably, and that probably constitute a barrier to the investment in African countries. They can provide consultation and assistance in all these areas. And these areas are all parallel. You see, we cannot say we're going to take one issue and leave the others, because they're all affecting the investment climate in the African countries.
Right. If we speak about issues or prior issues that should be addressed in Africa, it would be stability, sustainable development.
Yes.
And at the same time, the rising challenges occurring from world crises. We had 2 years of pandemic and a war that is ongoing, plus definitely the challenges that had occurred already in Africa. So how can the United States really turn promises, because this is not the first summit or US-Africa summit that has been held, but another one was held in 2014. How would the United States turn promises into deeds, or words into deeds at this upcoming stage? Yes.
That's a very important question I have raised, you see, because actually all these summits, you see, end sometimes into square one where it used to be and nothing is being done. What I suggest is having a steering committee to be taking the recommendations which were raised in this conference and setting up an action plan in order to implement all the recommendations which were discussed in this conference. Number three, the steering committee will have a lot of authority in order to eliminate, certainly to do such things, you will find obstacles. So certainly they have the authority to eliminate obstacles in order to streamline and reach their objectives.
Some of the important files that were addressed during the summit, and or the Egyptian vision that was submitted by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi towards important files, was the establishing bridges of transportation infrastructure, which is very important for Africa, raising the volume of the intra-trade among African countries with the support of the United States to maximize the benefits from materials of primary resources and to see the benefit from the global economy while attracting foreign direct investments.
Well, this is certainly very important. Certainly, the United States will certainly put a lot of emphasis, and probably, I think this time they are taking the matter seriously, because certainly, as you know, there is now Russia which is competing with the United States. So probably Africa is one of the continents which is very promising in a lot of aspects, not only in the political and economic aspects, but in the agricultural field, in the industrial field, in the oil business. You see, I would like to inform you that China has had a lot of concession agreements in the field of petroleum industry in some African countries. So certainly, if the United States is going to go there, certainly they will have a competitive edge, because they have experience in all these domains, in the agricultural domain, in the industrial domain, and in the oil domain. Certainly, what is very important that the United States has allocated a certain sum of money in order to start the project. This gives the message that the project is going, or the recommendations are taking a serious direction. And hopefully, as I said, an action plan has to be set and has to be followed up. Again, there should be a committee in order to eliminate obstacles, which are, we expect there will be a lot of obstacles there in the implementation phase.
You pointed your finger on a very important also file that was raised, which is that the economic transportation will not happen in Africa without cheap energy.
Exactly.
And here there has been this emerging role by Egypt.
Certainly, Egypt has a lot of experience in the energy field, you see, in all domains. So certainly, cooperation with Egypt and the United States can assist in this respect in order to give consultation into the various energy issues, you see. And this is a very, very important matter, because it's part of the infrastructure. And if you don't have a professional energy source, certainly this will be constitute a drawback and will cause a problem, certainly, in the development phase.
Some of the promises and pledges made by the United States President yesterday, or throughout the 3 past days, has been evaluated or assessed by the African leaders. To which extent do you think that the United States is really serious in opening horizons of cooperation with the African continent at this particular stage and this upcoming future?
I'll tell you, as I mentioned before, certainly the United States faced competition with with Russia, and with China. Certainly, as I mentioned before, I told you that the African continent will constitute a very good chance in order to get these countries into the circle of the United States, and in order to cooperate, and in order to meet the challenges that the United States already economically and politically are meeting now with respect to China and Russia, you see. So certainly this is a very good chance, and I think the United States will be taking it very seriously, because they have a very good chance in order to invest there.
Yes. These are our whole hopes at this upcoming stage. Dr. Mostafa Tammam, economic analyst, thank you so much for being with us over the phone.